Hi. Thank you for inviting me over. I'm thrilled, but I'm trembling at the same time. So I am hoping, when I see a musical stand, by the way, I always think I'm going to sing, because I'm a singer on the side, or I'm going to play percussions or something. So I'm going to deliver this speech on the 9/8 beat, fast. I am trembling because I also read Ben Wallace's New York Magazine piece a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure some of you read that too, so I'm not sure whether I'm going to be delivering some pseudo-scientific speech here or what. As a veteran PhD student myself, I'm hardly a poster child for progress. Actually, if anything, I could be the anti-hero of a sci-fi novel where everything else progresses but the main character. I'm stalled. So I hit the wall several times when I was writing this speech. I tried to remember my first awakening to the idea of progress. When was it? I grew up in Turkey in the late 70s, a country where all hell broke loose between two coups d'etats in 1971 and in 1980. Our neighborhood was a typical middle-class neighborhood, mirroring all sorts of political agendas, socialists and fascists fighting with each other. It was a live theater of a civil war between them, and my brother and I, we were breathlessly watching that war through two little holes that we carved on the canvas on the balcony iron balustrades. So this was my first framing machine for film. I was looking from a hole, looking at the war in between. Over the years, the height and number of these little holes grew and increased, and because we were both growing tall. Then one day, we woke up to military marches on the radio and tanks rolling in the streets. I clearly remember the talk of progress on the radio those days. The generals who took control over said they did what they did for the country's progress and a brighter future. Indeed, we progressed a lot during those days, a lot. The generals' regime, thanks to their international allies at the School of Americas, administered the most advanced torture chambers. They were able to cause the most pain with the least visible signs, and hundreds perished in those chambers, thousands disappeared, and many more became refugees. Most of the progressive gang of generals peacefully died in their deathbeds. Finally, two of them have recently been called to court in Turkey, and hopefully they are going to be tried. But judging from the record of all other post-coup d'etat settings, we did not progress quick enough to deliver some form of justice for the victims and some form of punishment for the offenders. After all, what would be the appropriate punishment for those who are responsible for the killings of hundreds of people? Rethinking progress, I oscillated several times between the public and private. Being a first-generation immigrant, I knew I could write a book on non-progress, I was not progressing, on circularity as opposed to linearity, on resetting and restarting one's life's counter several times. Undoing and redoing yourself is what happens to hommes and femmes de plume when they are forced to reinvent themselves in a foreign language, by all means somebody else's house. They have to kill themselves first in their mother tongue, bury their former writer selves for good, and patiently wait for that idyllic moment, if it comes, of course, when they will suddenly feel comfortable in other people's language. Stalled in writing the PhD for good, a typical talk with friends and family would be as follows. Oh, how are you these days? Same old. I feel like a loser. Why? What happened? I'm not able to progress. Still? So you got it. The idea of progress killed me. It tormented my soul. I even started running 2 years ago to overcome the curse of progress, to give myself the impression that something is indeed progressing. A proud former couch potato, I still can't believe I will run my second half marathon tomorrow morning. This alone could be perhaps the only reason I could talk about progress in a good light, but I still have doubts. And having doubts myself about my own entitlement to speak about progress, I'm here to sow doubts among believers in progress in these times of crisis. As chaotic as they may seem, times of crisis bear the seeds of a most genuine turning point. In such times of genuine turning points, when the past ceases to throw its light upon its future, the mind of man wanders in obscurity, says Tocqueville. I think such wandering obscurity is one of the clearest indications of the need to consider anew the meaning of progress and human responsibility in that progress. So I'm aiming at a healthy dose of confusion today. At another distressful juncture where I thought the cap on interesting ideas in the universe must have been reached, and there simply was none for me left, I remember we thought of progress back in the 90s when I was a college student at Middle East Technical University in Turkey. And I'm sure some of you thought about progress post-Vietnam, perhaps not in identical terms, but probably very close. Perhaps life was revolving around those who progress without looking back, the achievers, and those who periodically are stalled and rethinking what progress really is. Reading the best minds on postmodernity and critical modernity in the 90s, we thought we already did away with the old aimants of enlightenment and modernity and progress. We thought we beat the infamous white man, the villain protagonist of the modernity. We thought we exposed his arrogance, his colonial ambitions, his greed well enough. We thought we put all dark forces of history behind. We thought we dealt a good blow to the heart of darkness, to racism, to discrimination, to irresponsible scientific progress. We were naive. At the time, we didn't know much about the details of the Halabja massacre in Iraq, where then ally Saddam Hussein's regime gassed more than 10,000 Kurdish citizens, half of whom would die with the supplies it got from Singapore, the Netherlands, Egypt, India, West Germany, and the United States. To our surprise, of all these culprits, West Germany was the most institutionally committed to a post-Holocaust legal framework, but that didn't mean much when it came to selling cutting-edge chemical technology, certainly to be used en masse. We learned an immediate bitter lesson there. Fascism beaten in one front alone only meant that, not much and nothing more. It could easily deliver its scientific accumulation, i.e. progress, elsewhere in a business-as-usual manner and continue to survive. And fascism was not just about the regime type, but at times a sine qua non component of ever-progressing military-industrial complex and a larger market revolving around that complex. Progress was certainly the ability to export one's industrial machine of violence elsewhere, I thought. A political elite's ability to kill elsewhere in order to deliver social and economic goodies to its own citizenry. Then came the almost two simultaneous news of Srebrenica and Rwanda, one at the periphery of Europe, the other one in a geography where carnage was normally expected and indeed carefully inculcated long ago by Europeans themselves. It was none other than the Belgians who authored Rwandan textbooks and devised ID cards in the 30s by establishing and delineating the boundaries of race categories between Hutus and Tutsis. Among other pseudoscientific things, minority Tutsis were marked and endowed with superiority, hence were perceived as more progressed, as opposed to underdeveloped majority Hutus. Neither the Bosnian nor the Rwandan massacres were called genocide during their times. So when the Sudanese case qualified to be called as such when it was actually taking place, we again thought that we made some progress and that this time we would be able to stop the killings before it was too late. Alas, we learned our second and third biting lessons there. Number one, calling it a genocide didn't really matter in terms of securing the political outcomes we wanted. And number two, the International Criminal Court was not exactly colorblind and only issued verdicts to punish the dark-skinned war criminals who, of course, were quick in pointing out the colorful kangaroo nature of the court. I'm not even walking into the minefield of whether international intervention can be justified, something we couldn't really sort out since 1878 Berlin Treaty. One of the central issues of that treaty that had to do with the Ottoman Empire and its treatment of its Christian minorities, a population which several European powers claimed responsibility of. Indeed, the issue of minorities, especially the question of what to do with states if they do not take the necessary institutional measures to protect their minorities, has been one political area we still have not made progress for a number of reasons, but mainly because human rights politics have been instrumentalized by European states themselves as a divide and rule strategy in less developed settings in the last 150 years. The Ottoman imperial collapse, which stamped the entire Middle East with a bitter taste of distrust towards Europeans and their institutions, is the prime example for this. The Armenian genocide of 1915, perpetrated by the ruling cadres of the empire before its collapse, was the result of Ottoman imperial domestic wrangling, coupled with such international mingling and interference in Ottoman internal affairs. Ironically, the political party who engineered and perpetrated the Armenian genocide's worst episode between 1915 and 1918, along with exterminating Assyrian and Pontic Greek populations, was called the Committee of Union and Progress. Progress, indeed. That name alone tells a lot about the spirit of the times and how Auguste Comtean positivism, and not some backwater religious tribalism, has been influential in the thinking and writings of the prominent Union and Progress Party members. Pretty much like National Socialists at the Third Reich regime in Germany, it would take less than 7 years for this otherwise progressive political party, who was against the Sultan's arbitrariness and wholeheartedly for a new constitutional regime, to erase almost entirely the autochthonous Christian populations of the empire in what will be the second genocide of the 20th century. The rather unknown first one was the Herero genocide perpetrated by German forces in Namibia. So we have Namibia, Ottoman Empire, Central Eastern Europe, Japan, Vietnam, Cambodia, Iraq, Bosnia, Rwanda, and Sudan. It's 10 genocides in total if you count Japan, 9 if you don't, for political reasons, for the last 110 years. And this number is very consistent with the civilian combatant casualty ratio that was given by the 2001 International Red Cross Committee report. That chilling number was 10-1, meaning for every soldier who got killed in combat, 10 non-combatants, i.e. civilians, were killed in the 20th century. So, guys, don't think twice when that military recruiter visits campus next time, and call all your cousins abroad to enlist in their respective armies as well. That's the only way of survival, really. But in any case, your cousin's chances of being killed as civilians is probably higher than yours. It goes without saying. It still makes a difference whose progress civilian you are. When it comes to being killed en masse, God, unfortunately, still privileges the white man. He must be white, this God. So I want to ask, ladies and gentlemen, is progress in modern times the ability to incur the most damage in others while ourselves suffering less and less? But the Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker claims we indeed considerably progressed in curbing violence, and that we are living in a world where the occurrence of both day-to-day individual and long-term organized violence steadily declines. I know it's hard to believe, but he has several pages of data to back his claim. But he neither denies our ability nor our inventive intellectual faculties to kill en masse. Medical progress still has not found a cure for mankind's self-destructive abilities. We are not perhaps the most intelligent of all animals. We are perhaps the most destructive of all animals to date. As deterrent as they can be, it's no secret we possess nuclear arms to destroy life on not only one, but several planets. In post-scientific revolution years, we are now vaccinating kids only to kill healthier generations en masse in the future. And let's not ever think, as ordinary citizens, we do not have any responsibility for this grim state of affairs. We do. When the steam engine was invented and the international trade network started to enjoy its colonial benefits, hardly any regime was democratic. Neither the elite nor the masses thought in terms of representation. So scientific progress and politics surrounding it were still secluded from the masses. In the nuclear age, having comfortably delegated political power to our representatives, knowingly or unknowingly, we became silent accomplices, smooth operating accessories to the elite's crimes. In the good old days, only a few of us killed for the feudal lord. Now all crimes are committed in our name, and this also we owe to a certain extent to institutional progress. As it must be clear by now, there unfortunately is no such thing as progress outside the domain of politics and morality. Yet, one of the most incisive formulations regarding the dangers of progress without qualifiers and its utilitarian calculus bears not the signature of a political scientist, but that of a novelist. In Karamazov Brothers, Dostoevsky's Grand Inquisitor asks, "Imagine that you are creating a fabric of human destiny with the object of making men happy in the end, giving them peace and rest at last, but that it was essential and inevitable to torture to death one tiny creature, that baby beating its breast with its feast, for instance, and to found that edifice on its unavenged tears, would you consent to be the architect on those conditions? In short, if you knew that the world will be a better place tomorrow for millions of people, would you torture and perhaps kill a child in order to secure peace? Would you kill any child? Would you kill your child? Would you kill a dog? Would you kill your dog?" Well, this is the same kind of question we answer secretly every time we consent to a war in order to sustain our top-of-the-line lives. And Dostoevsky's potential villain must be lesser of a villain, comparatively speaking, since we are not killing for an otherwise most commendable idea of an idyllic pax, but we are really killing for daily morning showers and that extra forgetful trip to the mall. We are a gang of lame criminals enjoying the latest models of our gadgets. The Holocaust gave us a lot to think about, but it also helped us to externalize the evil extremely prematurely. We all can comfortably quote from the banality of evil while completely being oblivious to the fact that we, all of us, became decaffeinated ahimans ourselves. Each of us bear only a tiny fraction of responsibility, comparatively speaking, and this is perhaps the best secret that progress was able to achieve, hiding our crimes from ourselves. So, ladies and gentlemen, as much criminal as I am, as you are, I would like to still uphold on Romain Rolland's motto, and this is attributed to Antonio Gramsci, but indeed it's a Romain Rolland piece. You should perhaps take the pessimism of the mind from this talk, but you are also responsible to take the optimism of the will back home tonight. Thank you.